What man's going to be fucking your wife because you were so worried about work, and never taking time off? You bought into this fucking hustle culture and you're just you're crushing it, bro. All your fucking gym bros are congratulating you. Hell yeah, dog. Meanwhile, you're putting yourself in a fucking early grave. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to day 21 of the free 30-day challenge inside of the Uncaged free group. I should probably be wearing my anti-guru hat for this one because what I'm about to tell you is going to be backed by like statistics and science. I don't want it to, this is not information that I founded or created. And even then, even though like I'm about to give y'all some statistics, it's probably going to be gut-wrenching. I am still a firm believer in like the anti-guru club, right? The hat's behind me somewhere. Is just because I say it, don't take it for truth. Go out there, do your own research, figure it out for yourself. And even so, what works for me may not work for you, but some of these statistics honestly kind of hurt my heart. I was going to say hurt my feelings, but this is something that I do try to practice in my own day-to-day life. And I will tell you, do not get caught up in the hustle culture. Y'all have heard me say it once. You've heard me say it 1,000 times. I'm not a fan of that. I hate seeing these people burn, the candle at both ends. And all they're doing is hurting themselves both now and in the future, which we're going to get into. But the first thing that I want to talk about really when it comes to what we're going to be discussing today, which is get yourself a fucking hobby. As elementary as it is, I can't tell you how many times we've gone through some of these BAP coaches, and more so in the more successful people that we have taken through the program have had to be given homework of go golf, go take your wife on a date, go to a track day, just go to a concert, go to a football game, a basketball game, whatever the case is. And the reason is because in their day-to-day life, they have a 30% higher increase in stress overall because they don't take time off, because they do not do something that feeds their soul. My wife talks about it in Unleashed all the time. They don't have something that pours into their cup. How do you pour from your cup if there's nothing left to pour, right? And so a 34% increase in stress levels just simply for not doing something that you care to do. It's been the craziest thing when we take through the BAP program and they're like, my homework is to go golf. Yeah, motherfucker, because we fucking care about you. We care about you. Your mental health is at a 30% higher, it decreases your mental health functionality by 30%. You're not having to work so hard to like tell yourself life's going to be okay. It's really hard to tell yourself that life's going to be okay if you never get any rewards for the hard work. Like, what is the point in busting your ass 24/7 for nothing? Like, at what point do you have a conversation, communication being key with your spouse, where you're like, man, like, I'm doing this because I feel as if this is what a man is supposed to do to make you feel secure, right? Women are looking for security. They're looking for a protector. They're looking for a provider. And you think you're doing that, but in reality, you're killing yourself. Your life satisfaction increases by 15% when you pick up a hobby, right? 15%. In Uncaged, like, we focus on 1%. Because if I were to have a conversation with any normal human being, when you start to look at a 1% swing in the positive direction for anything in life, it would be an absolute, like, astonishing, like, hell yeah. So, like, when we start to look at some of these numbers, 30%, 34%, 15%, right? 30% less, or 34% less stress, 30% better mental health overall, like cognitively, and a 15% higher like life satisfaction. Now you're taking that 1% and you're putting a huge multiple on it, a massive multiple. And think about how that compounds as it grows, right? The whole concept behind the 1% better is when you multiply a 1% swing in something daily, which is what we focus on in Uncaged. You can't eat an elephant in one bite, putting one foot in front of the other. It's the same concept. But when you start to do the math on the multiple of compounding growth, 1%, and then 1% on that, and then 1% on that, and then 1% on that, and you multiply that times 365 days, the multiple comes out to like a 37x. So when you start to put your blinders on it, like what's going to make you be more successful overall, holistically? We talk nonstop about efficiency strategies, but like holistically, what does it look like in your life if you were able to decrease your stress by 34%? What does it look like in your life if you were able to improve your mental health by 30%? That's 1/3. How many shitty days do you have out of an entire month? There's 30 days in a month. How many shitty days do you have? What if you subtracted that by 1/3? What does your life look like holistically? And then when you start to add 15% of life satisfaction on top of that, what does that look like for you? Not only that, bringing it back to your spouse and even your children. What does stressing yourself out and hitting burnout and working yourself into an early fucking grave look like for them? What happens to your spouse when you're dead? Huh? What happens to your spouse when you're dead? What man steps into that role at that point? What man's going to be fucking your wife because you were so worried about work, and never taking time off? You bought into this fucking hustle culture and you're just you're crushing it, bro. All your fucking gym bros are congratulating you. Hell yeah, dog. Meanwhile, you're putting yourself in a fucking early grave. And if we really want to talk about that, again, do the research. Mortality rates for people that don't focus on themselves and don't focus on taking time off and doing things that truly pour back into them, mortality rates are up by 30 to 34%. Pardon me, 37%. 30 to 37% increase in mortality rate. Disease, heart disease, 20% increase. What are you doing this for? A fucking dollar? I can't tell you how many like multi-millionaires I know. Well, maybe not I personally know, that I've done research on and learned from, but even that, you can apply it to how you personally would feel. What happens when you're on your deathbed? Would you give your millions to buy it all back? What if now is the time for you to imagine yourself on your deathbed with a 30 to 37% increase of you putting yourself in an early grave? You're fucking on the oxygen. You can barely fucking talk. You're having this like out of body experience and you're looking at your fucking self in today and right now and who you are watching this video. And you look at yourself, you pull the fucking oxygen mask off and you can barely fucking talk. And you're like, don't do it. Don't fucking do it. It's not worth it. Look at your wife. Look at your kids. What are you really doing this for? Because your fucking boys that high-five you on fucking social media, bragging about how many goddamn hours you worked, they ain't gonna fucking be there. They're not gonna fucking be there. So who are you really doing this for? Set your fucking ego aside. 20% increase in heart disease. I'm telling you guys, this type of stuff, I can't make it up. I'm not smart enough. But I care enough about me. And I care enough about Heather. And I care enough about Lottie to do this much research. You don't have to take what I'm saying for granted. Take this information, run with it, go do your own research, and figure out what works for you. Because for me, to get these statistics out of a better quality of a life, even if I get half of it, even if I get that just a 1% swing, is it worth it when you're on your deathbed just to have a 1% better opportunity to not die early, to not succumb to disease because you bought into fucking hustle culture? Who are you really doing this for? I joke about it in Uncaged VIP a lot. I get really interested when I watch some of these documentaries about the Pablo Escobars and these crazy like cartel members and stuff that, like, you know, when they finally get interviewed and they finally get caught and they're like, they're like, oh, I did this for my kids. I did this for my wife, my family. I did this to, change my family tree, like whatever they were talking about. Like, at what point does it change, right? Walter White doing it for his kid. At what point is enough enough? And you're telling yourself you're doing it for them, when in reality, you're doing it for your own ego. Like, at what point can you have bought the family the car that y'all needed to get to and from work? At what point could you have paid your kids' medical bills or your spouse's medical bills? At what point could you have paid your kids through college so that, like, they didn't have to go through the same lifestyle that you did? Like, at what point do you keep string betting yourself along saying, oh, well, when I accomplish this, then I'll chill. Oh, when I accomplish this, then I'll chill. Oh, I'll accomplish this when I chill. And then you get to the end of your life and you're like, I did it all for your kids. I did it all for my wife. Your wife's sitting there handing you divorce papers. So I did it all for you, babe. But did you? But fucking did you? The next thing I want to talk about, too, is when it comes to having these hobbies, again, efficiency is everything. I don't care what kind of a position that you're in inside of your business. I mean, we're all high performers here, which is actually like a lot of the documentation that or the notes that I wrote down for today specifically is like talking to high achievers. High achievers doesn't mean hustle culture. High achievers means working harder, not smarter. So get your head out of your ass, get off fucking social media looking at highlight reels, and do some research on the fucking statistics. Because I don't care what you're doing, at some point you're in some sort of sales. You're selling yourself, you're selling a product, you're selling a service, right? And so when it comes to selling yourself, like, there is creativity that has to come with that. But outside of that, even if you're in an industry that does require creativity, maybe you're a visionary, it takes creativity. Maybe you're a creator, photographer, videographer, graphic designer, things of this nature. When you start to take time off, when you take hobbies, when you are able to rest and recharge your fucking brain, we talked about this earlier, you're actually able to get an increase of 50% in your creativity because you have downtime. We talked about your brain is not meant to run at 9,000 RPMs 24/7. So fucking stop. Look at the research. Learn for yourself. Test it fucking out. For the next remainder, we only have 9 more days together. Man, do it for 2 weeks. Do it for 3 weeks. Do it for 4 weeks. You all want to talk about 75 hard and commit? Dude, give yourself a real fucking 75 hard. And actually give a fuck about you and your health and your productivity. 50% increase. Not only that, check this out. You get a 67% decrease in running the risk of burnout. I've talked about burnout a lot on like the podcast and on our roundtable calls inside of the VIP program and shit. Like, burnout fucking sucks, dog. That's why we focus on 1% better. If we said like, yo, let's focus on 10x, right? 10x is better than 2x. Listen, I don't give a shit, like, the buzzwords, and don't take anything that I'm saying misconstrued. What I'm fucking talking about is learning yourself and learning how to become more efficient. That 1% better is better than trying to do 10x and then 10x and then 10x and then burning out and then you don't fucking touch it forever. How many times have you tried to jump into like your physical fitness way too fucking hard? You jump in thinking you're going to do 7 days a fucking week. Sometimes half the fucking battle is just driving to the fucking gym. That's the mental win. You get out and then you do a little bit of time and you earn your stripes and you earn your stripes. But we're taking little steps here. 50% increase in creativity, 67% increase or decrease in the chance of burnout. What would that do for you? What would that do for you? Your work performance increases by 16% and your focus by 20% while you're working because you're able to put the distractions out. You know that you are going to get that reward. We talked about it, rewarding yourself for goals. When you are in the zone, when it is time to work, you know that it's time to work. You put the efficiency in your time. I mentioned it earlier in the 30-day challenge. 4-hour work week. I don't necessarily agree with absolutely everything with Tim Ferriss and the way he wrote the book because I know he doesn't actually only work 4 hours a week. But the definition that comes from that, or one of the stories that comes from that is like if you will go to ask your boss for time off and say it's 5 p.m., is when you typically get off and you're like, yo, I got to take my wife to, I think a doctor's appointment is the example that he said, can I get off at 2 o'clock? Well, cool. If you get your work done by 2, that normally it would have taken you to 5 to get accomplished, you can take the rest of the day off. You're going to do it every time. Why don't we work that committed all the time? And for most of us, it's because we don't ever have opportunities to release. Of course, I'm not going to work that hard, because what's the point? I'm just going to come back tomorrow and do it all over again. And then I'm going to come back tomorrow and do it all over again. Then I'm going to come back tomorrow and do it all over again. There's never an opportunity for you to live a better life. So what are you doing it for? Of course you're not going to be motivated. Of course you're not going to be inspired. And again, in Uncaged, like, you know, we believe that consistency outbeats motivation and inspiration, because there's going to be some days that you're not motivated. There's going to be some days that you're not inspired. And so the consistency, because what we're learning about putting one foot in front of the other, about becoming 1% better, is that it's the consistency that helps pull us through those bad days. Because no matter who you are, no matter what the statistics say, you're still going to have fucking bad days. And so if we can prepare on how do we operate in those bad days, when this happens, then that consistency gets to take over. Because it's not always gonna be a perfect example. And when you start to build mindsets and strategies like this based on the bad days instead of the perfect day, because how many times does a perfect day come around versus how many does a bad day come around? But then what we start to do is we start to peel back the layers of the onion and see that there's strategies here where we can actually decrease the amount of bad days we have by 30% by fucking going golfing, dog. By taking your kid to a fucking park. I've talked about this very openly. When we made the transition to focus on Uncaged holistically, we literally took a 90% pay cut and moved halfway across the country. And at the time, the only thing we could truly afford to do was just go for a fucking drive. Roll the windows down, get some fresh air, get some vitamin D shining on us, and experiencing these moments as a fucking family. Windows down, driving over the causeway, looking at the harbor, wind blowing Heather and Lottie's hair everywhere, music cranked. That allowed me a 30% decrease in my shitty days. What would that do for you? It doesn't have to be something that costs money. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant, but it's got to be something for you. Take your wife out. Get fulfilled. Pour into your cup. Pour into her cup. Take your children out. Do something with them. What does this life look like if they're not in it? What does this life look like if you put yourself into an early grave? What are you really doing this for? Who are you really doing this for? You tell everyone else on social media that it's for them. You showcase all this hard work for them. You make it about them so you can sleep well at night. All the meanwhile, you're doing it so all the fucking bros on your social media that bragged about working 12 hours get to see that you bragged 14 hours. Cool, what are you going to do when they fucking die? You going to go to the hospital? You going to stand there and hold their hand as they pass away? You going to, you're going to speaking to them like, bro, it's okay. You were a true hustler. You killed it, dog. No, fuck no, you aren't. And fuck no, they're not coming to fucking save you. So fucking cut that childish ass bullshit out and really refocus on who and why you're doing what you're doing. Because I'll tell you right now, they interviewed people and people gave a 50% yes to their well-being being increased when they started taking hobbies and started taking times for themselves. 50%. Which side of that are you going to be on? Not only that, a lot of people came back and said that it decreased the amount of isolation that they sat in by 25%. No fucking shit it did, because you're not depressed. I've been there. I've gone through it. Stress and anxiety just took over, consumed me before I understood personal and professional development and understanding stuff like this. No shit, all you want to do is lay in bed and sleep and try and ignore your fucking problems. So that 25% increase on being able to get over Your isolation. What's that look like for you? It's wild to me to be in a world that we live in with information like this so readily available. And one of two things. No one really that I've seen, at least not statistically, is showing up in my algorithm talking about this kind of stuff. But not only that, we don't even care enough to do very little research. Like this is just scratching the surface. Every one of these statistics that I've talked about, not only each one of these sections of these like 5-day increments that we're running in, I could do a 30-day challenge on that if I had the time to have associated the proper amount of dedication and study to these topics specifically. So like the rabbit holes can go very, very, very deep. But luckily for us, there's people out there that have already done that so that we don't have to, and we get to study their research. Ivy League schools, Fortune 100 companies, very, very, very successful people that are dedicating almost all of their time to learn this stuff. And because it is public information, because these surveys and these studies are out there for everyone to see, we get to learn about it. But you don't care enough to look at the minimal amount of reports based on this kind of stuff, and you are killing yourself. So, guys, I hope this meant something to you. I have no homework for you other than getting into the homework thread, the brainstorm thread, talking about this, and I want to hear what hobbies you love, what hobbies you wish you could do, but more importantly, what are you going to start doing? What hobbies are you going to put into action and say, I'm going to start here? I don't care if it's simply just going to a park, going for a run, going for a walk, picking up exercising. There's stuff you can be doing for free. But then from there, for the ones that can afford it, what rallies are you taking your car on? What track days are you going on? Are you going to motocross races? Are you going to basketball games? Are you going to sports? Yeah, basketball games, sports games. I meant like sports games or concerts. Like, what is it? Get in the thread. Let's start talking about this. Let's start brainstorming. Let's start coming up with some creative ideas for things for maybe we can do together. Maybe we're meeting up with Uncaged members all across the country. Shit, we got VIP members all across the world. What are you doing to meet up with them? What are you doing to interact with people? And again, pour back into your cup. Go have lunch. Go have dinner. Go have coffee. Go out for drinks. Like whatever that looks like. Go to a fucking sports game together. Go to a concert together. Go do something. But just get out there and focus on yourself. We'll see you tomorrow.